ಎಲ್ರಿಗೂ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ. ನಮ್ಮ ಮುಂದಿನ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮ ನಾಳೆ ಮತ್ತು ನಾಳಿದ್ದು ದಿನಾಂಕ 7 ಮತ್ತು 8 ಶತಾವಧಾನಿ ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ ರಾ ಗಣೇಶ್ ಅವರಿಂದ ಭಟ್ಟನಾರಾಯಣನ ವೇಣಿ ಸಂಹಾರ ನಾಟಕ, ಅದರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಉಪನ್ಯಾಸ ಇರುತ್ತೆ ನಾಳೆ ಮತ್ತು ನಾಳಿದ್ದು. ಉಪನಿಷತ್ತು 16 ಮಹತ್ವದ ಸ್ಪಷ್ಟೀಕರಣಗಳ ಒಂದು ದೊಡ್ಡ ಸಮೂಹ. ಅದರಿಂದ ನಾವು ಬೇಕಾದರೆ ದ್ವೈತವೋ ಅದ್ವೈತವೋ ಏನು ಬೇಕಾದರೂ ಸಿದ್ಧಾಂತಗಳನ್ನು ಡಿರೈವ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೋಬಹುದು. ಮಾತುಗಳ ಲಿಮಿಟೇಷನ್ ಕುರಿತೇ ಕೇನೋಪನಿಷತ್ತು ಮೊದಲಾದ ಉಪನಿಷತ್ತುಗಳಲ್ಲೆಲ್ಲಾನು ಭಾಳ ವಿವಿಡ್ಡಾಗಿ ಹೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಋಷಿಗಳ ಗಮ್ಯ ಇರೋದು ಭೌತ ಮನುಷ್ಯನ ಪರಿಮಿತಿಯನ್ನು ಮತ್ತು ಪರಮಾತ್ಮನ ಸರ್ವವಾಸ್ಯತೆಯನ್ನು ಸ್ಥಾಪಿಸಬೇಕು ಅನ್ನೋದು. ಉಪನಿಷತ್ತುಗಳ ಮಹತ್ವ ಅಂತೂ ಸಿದ್ಧ ಸಂಗತಿಯೇ ಆಗಿದೆ. ವೇದಾಂತ ದರ್ಶನಕ್ಕೆ ಮೂಲವೇ ಉಪನಿಷತ್ತು. ಪ್ರಸ್ಥಾನ ತ್ರಯದ ಪೈಕಿ ಭಗವದ್ಗೀತೆ ಮತ್ತು ಬ್ರಹ್ಮಸೂತ್ರಗಳಿಗೂ ಆಧಾರ ಉಪನಿಷತ್ತುಗಳೇ. ಉಪನಿಷತ್ತಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಇರುವ ದರ್ಶನವನ್ನೇ ಗೀತೆ ಮತ್ತು ಬ್ರಹ್ಮಸೂತ್ರಗಳು ರೀಶೇಪ್ ಮಾಡಿ ವ್ಯವಸ್ಥೆಗೊಳಿಸಿ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿವೆ. ಗೀತೆಯ ಪ್ರಸಿದ್ಧ ಧ್ಯಾನ ಶ್ಲೋಕದಲ್ಲಿಯೇ ಹೇಳಿದೆಯಲ್ಲ, ಏನು ಸರ್ವೋಪನಿಷದೋ ಗಾವೋ ದೋಗ್ಧ ಗೋಪಾಲನಂದನ ಅಂತ. ಉಪನಿಷತ್ತುಗಳು ಗೋವು, ಆ ಹಾಲನ್ನು ಕರೆದು ನಮಗೆ ಪ್ರಸಾದವಾಗಿ ಕೊಡೋನು ಗೋಪಾಲನಂದನ ಅಂತ. ಉಪನಿಷತ್ತುಗಳು ಅಸಾಮಾನ್ಯ ರೀತಿಯ ರಚನೆಗಳು, ಈವನ್ ಆಸ್ ಕಾಂಪೋಸಿಷನ್ಸ್. ಸರಳವಾಗಿ ಉದ್ದಕ್ಕೂ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೋತ್ತರ ರೂಪದಲ್ಲಿ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಮಂಡನೆ ಇದೆ. ಆದರೆ ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಡಿಸೆಪ್ಟಿವ್ ಸಿಂಪ್ಲಿಸಿಟಿ. ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ಅಂತಿಮ ತತ್ವಗಳ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಮಾತ್ರ ಉಪನಿಷತ್ತುಗಳು ದೇ ಆರ್ ಅನ್ಕಾಂಪ್ರಮೈಸಿಂಗ್. ಇದನ್ನು ನಾವು ಗಮನಿಸಬೇಕು. ಇಲ್ಲಿಯ ಮೆಥಡಾಲಜಿ ಆಫ್ ಇಂಕ್ವೈರಿ ಏನಿದೆ ಅದು ತುಂಬ ವೈಜ್ಞಾನಿಕವಾಗಿದೆ. ಸ್ಟೆಪ್ ಬೈ ಸ್ಟೆಪ್, ಮೆಟ್ಟಲಾಗಿ ಇಲ್ಲಿಯ ಪ್ರತಿಪಾದನೆ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಅಲ್ಲಲ್ಲಿ ಕಥೆಗಳು, ಉಪಕಥೆಗಳು, ಅದರ ರೂಪದಲ್ಲಿಯೂ ಕೂಡ ತತ್ವದ ಪ್ರಕಟೀಕರಣ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಆಚಾರ್ಯರುಗಳು ಶಿಷ್ಯರ ಕ್ಷಮತೆಯ ಮಟ್ಟಕ್ಕೆ ಇಳಿದು ಬಂದು ಬೋಧನೆ ಮಾಡೋದನ್ನು ನಾವಿಲ್ಲಿ ನೋಡುತ್ತೇವೆ. ಈ ರೀತಿ ಟೆಕ್ನಿಕ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಕಮ್ಯುನಿಕೇಷನ್ ತುಂಬ ಗಮನಾರ್ಹವಾಗಿದೆ ಉಪನಿಷತ್ತುಗಳಲ್ಲಿ. ಹೀಗೆ ಗುರು ಶಿಷ್ಯ ಸಂಬಂಧದ ಮುಖ್ಯತೆಯ ಪ್ರಕಾಶನವೂ ಕೂಡ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಆಗತ್ತೆ. ಶಿಷ್ಯರು ಗುರುಗಳನ್ನು ಪರೀಕ್ಷಣೆ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ, ಗುರುಗಳು ಶಿಷ್ಯರನ್ನು ಪರೀಕ್ಷೆ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಅನೇಕ ಸಲ ಶಿಷ್ಯನ ಬಾಯಿಂದಲೇ ಗುರುಗಳು ತತ್ವವನ್ನು ಹೊರಡಿಸ್ತಾರೆ. ಎಲ್ಲ ಕಡೆ ಎದ್ದು ತೋರೋದು ಅನುಷ್ಠಾನದ ಪ್ರಾಧಾನ್ಯ. ಜಗತ್ತಿನ ಎಲ್ಲ ಜೀವಿಗಳ ಶ್ರೇಯಸ್ಸಾಧನೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿಯ ಮುಖ್ಯ ಲಕ್ಷ್ಯ. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನಡೆದಿರೋದು ಬರಿಯ ಇಂಟೆಲೆಕ್ಚುವಲ್ ಡಿಸ್ಕಷನ್ ಅಲ್ಲ, ಅದಕ್ಕಿಂತ ಬಹಳ ಮೇಲಿನ ಮಟ್ಟದ ಇಂಕ್ವೈರಿ. ಭ್ರಮೆಗಳಿಂದ ಮುಕ್ತರಾಗೋದರಿಂದ ಉನ್ನತ ಸ್ಥಿತಿ ಪ್ರಾಪ್ತಿಯಾಗತ್ತೆ. ಅದೆಲ್ಲ ಇರಲಿ, ಈ ಲೋಕದ ನಮ್ಮ ಜೀವನವೇ ಆನಂದಮಯವಾಗತ್ತೆ ಅದರ ಅನುಷ್ಠಾನದಿಂದ ಅನ್ನುವ ಸಂದೇಶ ಕೂಡ ಉಪನಿಷತ್ತುಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಇದೆ. ಹೀಗೆ ಉಪನಿಷತ್ತುಗಳ ಅರಿವಿಗೆ ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ಅಧಿಕಾರಿಗಳು. ಇಟ್ಸ್ ಎ ಮೋಸ್ಟ್ ಡೆಮೊಕ್ರ್ಯಾಟಿಕ್ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್. ಈ ಅದ್ಭುತ ವಾಂಗ್ಮಯದ ರಚನಾ ವಿನ್ಯಾಸವೇ ತುಂಬ ಅದ್ಭುತವಾಗಿದೆ. ಸೊ ದಿ ಅರ್ಲಿಯೆಸ್ಟ್ ರಿಕಾರ್ಡ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಪರ್ಸೂಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಟ್ರೂತ್ that they remain the most splendid exemplars of heights of human thought. ಇದರ ಕೆಲವು ಆಯಾಮಗಳನ್ನು ಅತ್ಯಂತ ಆಪ್ತವಾಗಿ ತಿಳಿಸಿಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಸ್ವಯಂ ಸಾಧಕರಾದ ಪೂಜ್ಯ ಸ್ವಾಮಿ ಚಿದಾನಂದರು. ಅವರಿಗೆ ತಮ್ಮೆಲ್ಲರ ಪರವಾಗಿ ವಂದನೆ ಸಲ್ಲಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೇನೆ. ಈ 6 ದಿವಸಗಳ ಜ್ಞಾನಸತ್ರವನ್ನು ಪ್ರಾಯೋಜಿಸಿದವರು ದಿವಂಗತ ನಾಗರಾಜ್ ಅಕ್ಕಿ ಹೆಬ್ಬಾಳ್ ರಾಮಯ್ಯ ದತ್ತಿ, ಶ್ರೀಮತಿ ಪ್ರೇಮಲೀಲಾ ಪತ್ತಿ ಪಾಂಡುರಂಗ ದತ್ತಿ, ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ ಗುರುರಾಜ ಕರಜಿಗೆ ಅವರ ಪರಿವಾರಕ್ಕೆ ಸೇರಿದ ಶ್ರೀಮತಿ ಲಕ್ಷ್ಮೀಬಾಯಿ ಮತ್ತು ಶ್ರೀ ಗೋವಿಂದರಾವ್ ನರೇಂದ್ರ ದತ್ತಿ. ಈ ಅಭಿಮಾನಿಗಳಿಗೆಲ್ಲ ಕೃತಜ್ಞತೆ ಸೂಚಿಸ್ತಾ ಶುಭ ಕೋರ್ತೇನೆ. ಪ್ರಾಯೋಜಕ ಪರಿವಾರಗಳ ಪರವಾಗಿ ಶ್ರೀ ಸುರೇಶ್ ಚಂದ್ರ ನರೇಂದ್ರ ಮತ್ತು ಶ್ರೀಮತಿ ಸಂಧ್ಯಾ ನರೇಂದ್ರ ದಯವಿಟ್ಟು ವೇದಿಕೆಗೆ ಬಂದು ಪೂಜ್ಯ ಸ್ವಾಮಿಗಳಿಗೆ ನಮ್ಮೆಲ್ಲರ ಪರವಾಗಿ ಪ್ರಣಾಮಗಳನ್ನು ಸಲ್ಲಿಸಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ವಿನಂತಿ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೇನೆ.
Namaste. In about 30 years, last 30 years, I have been speaking on many platforms, here and abroad too. I would like to say briefly that speaking here at the Gokhale Institute of Public Affairs personally for me has been a matter of great gratitude, great exhilaration. We regard Shri D.V. Gundappa as a very great rishi of recent times. Somebody like me, in fact, has not studied Shri D.V.G. in detail. It is mainly Mankutimana Kagga that we very often study, and because of popular demand, I end up speaking here and there on Mankutimana Kagga. And even as I speak on that, as we do the job in a little popular way, my own Vedanta study makes me realize the depth and the felicity of the presentation of the Kagga. We are indeed very blessed to have had someone like Shri D.V.G. living in this part of the world, leaving behind a legacy, the benefit of which all of us are enjoying, and generations to come will receive the benefit of the legacy of Pujya Shri D.V.G. And he was the guiding force behind this institution. For years and years he himself nurtured, and with his prabhava, with his grace, with his power of influence, he drew to this place where you and I are sitting here today a lot of luminaries, lot of really saintly, scholarly people who came and shared their thoughts. So this place is no ordinary at all. At this extraordinary place, In fact, I personally slightly tremble whether I have done justice at all to the theme that we took, but we have made an attempt. Inside me, I resolve, next time if ever I get to come here, I will prepare more and I will go maybe on a short tapas for a few days before coming here. I am saying this indirectly to express how I feel about this place. And from my side too, I thank the management of this institute. I thank everybody who sponsored or who made this possible here. Words fail when the heart has some of the richest sentiments, but words have a place of their own too. But what I feel in my heart is way beyond the words that I have said this evening. It is all divine grace that you and I get connected with great personages like Sri Gokhale, Sri DVG, and places like this. We are indeed blessed. शान्ताकारं भुजगशयनं पद्मनाभं सुरेशं विश्वाधारं गगनसदृशं मेघवर्णं शुभांगं लक्ष्मीकान्तं कमलनयनं योगिभिर्ध्यानगम्यं वन्दे विष्णुं भवभयहरं सर्वलोकैकनाथम्. In this last and sixth session of this series, Facets of Self-Knowledge in the Upanishads, I would like to do some loud thinking on some chosen lines from one of the Upanishads, namely the Taittiriya Upanishad, which, according to my understanding and in my studies, is quite a heavy treatise. Of the three Vallis, Shikshavalli, Brahmanandavalli and Bhraguvalli of this Taittiriya Upanishad, especially the Brahmanandavalli is quite a lot of really thought-provoking, and in the Vedanta context I must say thought-transcending material. Brahmanandavalli alone, with Adi Shankara's commentary, so much the better, 100 times better, can be a tremendous and very rewarding engagement for our buddhi to question itself, to question a whole lot of the ways we have been living. We have been laboring to say in the last few lectures that it is all about taking off the psychological baggage. It is all about putting aside an erroneous perception that we have and coming upon right seeing. Upanishads are a darshana. They are a vision. They are right seeing. Bhagavad Pada Shankara himself was very fond of an expression, Samyak Darshana. In his Gita Bhashya and at other places, he often employed that word, Samyak Darshana. Seeing rightly. Darshana is seeing, Samyak is correctly. If we see correctly, there is no problem left at all. However, in order to see correctly, one needs to engage in such material that causes a friction between how we have been seeing so far and the truth that is revealed by the rishis. Taittiriya Upanishad, especially in the Brahmananda Valli, gives to us mind-blowing inputs. When we apply our mind to the revelations in Upanishads in general, and for this evening, the Brahmananda Valli in particular, if we go about it in a proper way, with some proper guidance from the great teachers, we are bound to drop all false baggage. Let me first draw your attention to almost the last part of Brahmananda Valli, which in a way reads like Falashruti. Like you have in Stotras, a Falashruti at the end. If you recite this Stotra daily, you will get such and such phala, such and such benefits. Lingastakam punyam yappatet shivasannidau shivalokam avapnoti shivena saha modate. If one reads Lingastaka daily in a Shiva temple or some place sanctified by a symbol of Shiva even, one goes to Shivaloka and so on. That is added to Lingastakam, 8 verses on Shivalinga. Like that, many stotras have what is called Falashruti. In the Taittiriya Upanishad, second Valli, namely Brahmananda Valli, second chapter sort of, it is said, if one knows Brahma, if one gains this Atma Jnana, in other words, one becomes free from 2 kinds of torments that are common in human life. We are tormented by 2 thought forms. Generally, when you and I feel bad about ourselves, which happens pretty often, it is of 2 kinds. Either we feel bad that we did not do what we had to do. That is called the error of omission. Some lapse took place at our hands. Other day I recited Shantakaram and second line went somewhere. I had a tiny regret or guilt of omission. Tiny because I have become somewhat sattvic after all these years. When we are rajasic, a little error on the part of us, the speakers, causes a lot of embarrassment. Oh, what did people think of us and so on. It is nothing but an attachment to our image. But as we become by divine grace a bit more sattvic, we mellow down, we learn to laugh at our own errors. But leave aside some error in reciting or chanting when we don't do something that our heart says was our duty. When there is an omission, lopa dosha, as we say, we feel tormented by the thought. Sometimes it goes for years. Sometimes a man even dies, breathes his last with the regret. All said and done, I did not do such and such duty of mine, which could be towards children, towards spouse, towards parents, towards teachers, towards students. All of us have this, the regret of omission. Even we teachers, who are respected, who are revered, who are looked at with pujya bhava and what not. But our conscience knows that over the years when we have taught students, somewhere some student deserved more attention or care and we did not give him or her. And somebody else somehow became sort of favorite to us and we gave too much time, too much attention. So, an honest teacher's bosom suffers from this sense of, I did not do what needed to be done, and I did what should not have been done. Who in human life is free from some guilt or the other? It bothers us. Can you believe? The Taittiriya Upanishad talks about it. Let me read that little portion and then clarify how it connects to self-knowledge. Yato vacho nivartante aprapya manasa saha anandam brahmano vidvan na bibheti kutascha neti. This is a prelude. Then it says, etagam havavana tapati kimahagam sadhuna karavam kimaham papamakaravamiti. 2 lines. Kimaham sadhu nakaravam. Sadhu means the right thing, the good thing, the virtuous thing. Nakaravam means na akaravam. I did not do. Akaravam I did. Na akaravam I did not do. Sadhu na akaravam. And a question upon it. Kimaham sadhu nakaravam. Did I not do the good thing that had to be done? As I gave a couple of examples, I had to take care of my father, but pursuing my career, I was 1,000 miles away. He was in Bombay, I was in Kolkata. And during his last moment, I wasn't there. Was it not a big omission? It could be of various kinds. In career also sometimes, with respect to subordinates, with respect to bosses, with respect to colleagues. Human life is rightly called a movement in relationships. And in relationships, whether we like it or not, our own conscience says, these are things you got to do. And these are the things, for heaven's sake, don't do. And whether we like it or not, certain times we don't do what we need to do. And certain other times, pressurized or forced or prompted by our hidden tendencies called vasanas, habits, we do things which should not be done. The mantra is referring to it. Kimaham sadhu nakaravam. Did I omit? Did I fail to do what had to be done? The good things, the duties. Other kind is Kimaham papam akaravam. Papam akaravam kim? Did I perform wrong things? At times our conscience is ruthless and uncompromising. It says, no doubt, you did sinful thing. That way Upanishad is putting it a little mildly, as though it is a doubt. Many a time our conscience has no doubt that we did what should not have been done, and we did not do what by all counts had to be done. But the context here is not a confession session. It is not a paschatapa, vishaya, paschatapa prasanga. The context here is how self-knowledge takes us above these guilts of omission or commission. To do what should not be done is the error of commission, and not to do, failing to do what should have been done is the error of omission. These two errors torment our bosom in the form of 2 forms of guilt. Then our bosom is not free. Psychological baggage to be put aside is nothing but making our bosom truly free of all guilt, shame, pride, and so on. Someone said GPS stands for guilt, pride, and shame. Just playing with the acronym. And you and I tend to have GPS in our heart. Can we be free of guilt and shame? Not by going for an escape, a drug or a drink or a smoke or some other escape. Temporarily, people forget these torturous thoughts by going for these escapes. Atmajnana is not one of those escapes which solve the problem temporarily. Atmajnana of the Upanishads is right seeing in which these forms of guilt or shame or pride or contempt, call it as you may, go away once for all. Once more we would use the word Atmajnana is like a great waking up. In your dream, if you had killed somebody or killed a cow or some such thing, and it was so shocking, so shaking to you, then you wake up and you find, thank God, I did not kill the cow. Now, when you wake up, you find there is neither the cow nor you, the doer. In the same way, somewhere else, there was a dream where you very foolishly or out of utter negligence did not do some good thing. And then you feel guilty within the dream. Then you wake up and find that, nothing like that. In fact, I have to do it today as the day breaks. It's even 3 a.m. just now. I won't fail. I won't forget to do it. I will see that I'll perform that duty. And by the time the day breaks at 10 a.m., you do what needs to be done. But in the dream, you did not do and already you are feeling guilty. So what happens when you wake up? You find that the doer himself disappears. And the Upanishads, by presenting Atmajnana, have all along been saying to us, your true nature is not a doer at all. For doership is within the realm of the mind. The Mundaka Upanishad says, Aprano hi amanaha shubbraha. You are pure consciousness, Chaitanya Matra. You are Satya Jnana Ananta Brahma, in which there is not a trace of doership, kartatva. As it was rightly said by Sri Ramaswamy, Bhagavad Gita is a wonderful restatement. It is a new summary that Sri Krishna came out with. Summary of what? Of the Upanishads. Sarvo Upanishado Gavo Dogda Gopalanandanaha Partho Vatsa Sudhir Bhokta Dugdam Gita Amritam Mahat. And in the Gita, Sri Krishna at many places says how this aham karomi, aham karta is false. I am personally fond of a verse in the 18th chapter of the Gita where Sri Krishna makes a rather powerful statement. Yasya naham krito bhavo buddhir yasya na lipyate hatvapi sa iman lokan na hanti na nibadhyate. In fact, every time I quote it, I become a bit hesitant in a part of me because half the audience tends to be confused also. I trust in Gokhale Institute, you all have heard quite a bit of Vedanta. That risk is less. But somewhere, if I quote this verse in Bhagavad Gita chapter 18 says, if somebody has no egoism, no ahankara, no doership, no sense of kartritva or bhoktritva, yasya nahankrito bhavaha, buddhi yasya na lipyate, one whose understanding doesn't get tainted, doesn't get attached to any object or any episode or any person, etc. Such a person is so free, even if he or she kills all these people, kills number of people, hatvapi sa iman lokan na hanti na nibadyate. Though he kills, he doesn't kill. Though he does, he is not bound. He is free. Those who are not properly introduced to this science of self-knowledge would get a bit confused and they may get shaken. This is a nice license, That means I go about and kill people or do some harm, and then I say that I have no doership, I am Shuddha Atma. Body did it, I am not the body. A thief once actually stole and ran for life. Police were chasing him. He heard a Vedanta lecture. And a great, highly respected speaker, saint, was saying, actually there is no doership in you. It is only the body that does everything. By then the police came and caught the thief. And the thief said, "Sir, please listen to him. I did not do anything." The police also had great respect for that saint. So they heard the saint. The saint once more repeated, whether it is eating or drinking, sleeping, walking, talking, or any activity, any action you do, you are not the doer. It is the body which does. You are not the doer. You are not the doer. The thief said, "Nodidra, kelidra, did you hear? I did not. It is the body which did." The police were smart. "All right, we will not arrest you. We will arrest only your body. You are Shuddha Brahma." Within them they said you are Shuddha Murka, but outwardly you are Shuddha Brahma. We won't arrest you. We respect this speaker, Pravachanakar, but the body and Indriya we will put in jail. The case will also run against this body and mind. So, Tirumantra, it will boomerang on you if you misunderstand or half understand Gita or Upanishads. All the same, that kind of shloka can be a bit hard for people, but in Upanishadic study it is made very clear. In fact, the Taittiriya itself says, the nature of self-knowledge is following these two lines, etagam havavana tapati kimahagam sadhuna karavam kimaham papam akaravamiti. I read those three lines. Following that it says, saya evam vidvanete atmanaggas pranute ubehe vaisha ete atmanaggas pranute. Two sentences make the absence of doership, for that matter, absence of object and subject division very clear. This means this Vidwan, here Vidwan is not just a ordinary scholar, Vidwan is one who knows, one who has the Vidya, Atma Vidya, has this Brahma Vidya, so to say. This Vidwan, ete Atmanam Spranute. This Pranute implies this knower of the highest truth makes all these thoughts of I omitted something, I committed something, etc. He makes them merge as though. He makes them become one with pure awareness. It's a bit of a poetic language. It can be understood more easily by once more taking the dream example. You wake up and if you say, "Oh, where did that cow go which I killed in my dream?" The cow and you who apparently killed have as though disappeared. Where did they disappear? They disappeared into your own pure awareness. Pure awareness alone is. These names and forms disappeared, merged in it. Or somewhere else, you did not do what had to be done. There too, somebody to whom you owed something, but you did not pay him, give him. So that person who had to receive from you, who was staring at you, who was looking at you in a questioning manner, where is the money that you owe me? That in the dream you felt bad about it. Upon waking up, the person to whom you owe and you who owe. You owe the other person something, and therefore there are two now. He has to receive from you, you have to give him. So the giver and the receiver, the subject and the object, right? When we are identified with our personality, there is this duality, there is this division. Thought is the creator of 99 imagined divisions for every one real division. Factual division is only 1 out of 100. 99 divisions are imagined. You meet each other, let's say you find the other person looking more healthy, more fit. That may be factual. But as your mind indulges in varieties of explanations, and then there is a regret, oh, I lost. I have been lazy. He has been doing exercise regularly. I have been working in some place where climate is bad. I should not have taken that job. He, in fact, is intelligent. A whole lot of judgments come. And in the medium of judgments, a number of differences between him and us come about. That is what I call psychological divisions. You imagine the other person is happier than you. You and I do very many times. The grass on the other side looks greener. The distant mountain looks very smooth. Durada betta nunnage, they say in Kannada. This happens in relationships. When you do not know the other person well enough, and you imagine how fortunate they are, they have no problems at all. And my life, full of problems. This is, in large number of cases, not true. They have their problems, and we have our own problems too generally. But when mind imagines, that's what I call psychological creation. In self-knowledge, the psychological creation completely subsides. If somebody is tall and you are short, he is tall, you are short, full stop. There the matter ends. The mind doesn't go one step further, how blessed, how fortunate he is, and how unfortunate I am. When I was about 14-year-old, my mother told me every day do some pull-ups and get taller. I did not listen. For rest of my life now I am short. The noisy mind, goes into many things. He is tall, I am short, full stop. And why do you judge? A tall man is more fortunate and a short man is less fortunate. You must have heard that or read that Chandamama story once, where, there was a small door and there was a girl who said, I will marry only that person who doesn't bend as I enters my house. All tall people had to bend. Then there was a short guy who just walked through the door, did not bend. There's some funny story. In Chandamama, the children's magazine, there used to be these one-pagers. Those one-pager stories used to be very cute. So the short fellow just walks through. And there are many other. When you have to get a shirt stitched, if you are short and slim, you need less clothes. So, simple examples. In many cases, it is mind which imagines that they are blessed. Somebody is in Singapore, somebody is in UK. From a distance we think, ಅವ್ರದ್ದು ಆಗೋಯ್ತಪ್ಪ UK ಹೋಗ್ಬಿಟ್ರು ಏನು ಸಮಸ್ಯೆ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ. What do you mean? Singapore or UK, USA or Australia, there are umpteen problems. Sometimes there are problems So our tradition has always talked not about west or east, down under or north. It has talked about karma only. Your karma follows you wherever you go. Go down under. As you know, New Zealand, Australia, etc. are called down under. England, I guess, is called West, and America, I suppose, is called Wild West. Or maybe the nomenclature has changed now, I don't know. Sometimes every 5 years, descriptions change. So let me not go on and on into this description, but I want to make it very clear. Examine, stay very alert. Be alert, and being aware is the greatest tool, is of greatest help in grasping Vedanta very well. Don't make Vedanta another comfortable indulgence. Don't make Vedanta another escape. Vedanta reveals, and you will get its true benefit by going about it with great alertness, not getting unduly emotional. So here we have ete. Ete is dual in number. In Sanskrit you have ekavachana, dvivachana, then bahuvachana. 3 or more is bahuvachana. So etat, ete, etani. Etat is 1, ete is 2, etani is plural. Vidwan ete atmanam spranute. Ubehi eva esha ete. The word ete is used second time. Atmanam spranute. So, ordinarily there are these ideas. Here I did what I should not have done, and here I did not do what I should have done. There are two. The Vidwan, one of Atmajnana, as though takes both of these and makes them merge in himself. The duality merges in non-duality. Just like in the second chapter, Sthita Prajna Lakshana in Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna says, when desires enter a person of self-knowledge, of the highest knowledge, it is like rivers entering the ocean, hardly making any difference. Apuryamana machala pratishtam samudramapaha pravishanti yadvat tadvat kamayam pravishanti sarve sashanti mapnoti nakama kami. There is a Trishtup shloka in the second chapter. Samudra, you are like a samudra. Every day many rivers bring water. During the certain tide, the opposite tide, some water goes away. Not much difference, hardly any difference to the ocean. In this way, ubehi eva esha ete, these two, atmanam spranute. So this is in a way falashruti, but in a way there is an insight. In fact, people like Swami Vivekananda have said the idea of duty, D-U-T-Y, kartavya, is a very powerful idea. It makes all humanity endlessly labor, endlessly, struggle in life. Somebody at the age of 10, somebody at the age of 20, 30, 40, 50, ask him or ask her, no gender bias please, ask her, have you done all your duties? The person says, no, a little more. I was hoping when I became, I think 60 and I retire, I will have no duties. But what happened was, some tragedy took place at home. And now I have to look after this grandchild. In some cases it's like that. Some other cases it is, my son ran into debt, so I am trying to help him. Some other cases, some other. Finally you will find that whether you are 60, 70, 80 or even above, or you are 8-year or 10-year-old, I am telling you now a cold truth. A cold truth is, duty is not absolute. Duty is relative to how you see yourself. And in Atmajnana, duty vanishes. It vanishes like a drop of water falling on a hot plate. Put a drop of water or a spoonful of water on a red hot, maybe tawa, what you call, plate, or in the kitchen. It just evaporates. If you have Atmajnana, you will find who has duty, who it is who has duty. There is a rising above a state of consciousness. The man of attachments, even when he is 100, will have a few duties in his perception. And someone like Siddhartha, even with a young wife and a very young baby child sleeping innocently, looks at them, but he has the clarity, he has the sense of course he was not enlightened at that time, but he had the clarity that this duty gets invalidated. This duty towards wife and child has its place. Please never imagine Siddhartha walked away with even the least sense of I don't care what happens to them. It's inconceivable. He was a very sensitive person. He was a very mature, understanding person. Never imagine or do not fancy that Siddhartha, while leaving Yashodhara and Rahul, looks at them, sorry, I have to do this. I have some better, higher goal. I know it is injustice to you, but you see, no. I feel sorry you want to narrate it that way. It is not so. On the contrary, I would imagine Siddhartha looking at them and understanding that not only I have seen a higher, direction, you too also in due course of time will be able to see the higher goals of life. I have confidence in both of you. I trust both of you. So it was with tremendous positive energy that he unwaveringly decides and tells his Sarathi, charioteer, let's go. He doesn't look back at all. All this is more light on human psychology. When our mind is pulled down by various attachments, identifications, my language, my country, my wife, my children, my house, the book I wrote, the CD I brought out. We are highly attached to varieties of things. Somewhere where I signed, somewhere where I studied, isn't it? All of us have. Please see it very carefully. A healthy sentiment has its place, but attachment is when it goes a little overboard, becomes unhealthy. When it goes overboard, it becomes attachment, and then it can be the breeding ground for even negative emotions. Somebody says something about my language, somebody says something about my community, I get angry. Hinsa, violence even can rise in me. So I am talking of that kind of emotions that go overboard. That would not happen. So to complete this example of Siddhartha, for example, Siddhartha was not dry-hearted. He saw Yashodhara, he saw Rahul, he had thought about them. He has as much love, if not more, than any good husband or father in the world. But he had that maturity in which he was able to put it in perspective, and his inspiration and that glimpsing. He had a glimpse of what he might find out. He was trying to find out, as you know, a cure, an answer to human suffering as such. For entire humanity, how can sorrow come to an end, was his question. So, your psychology, my psychology, his and her psychology, the way our mind works, it normally carries identification. Like a caterpillar which, before stabilizing itself on second leaf, Rather, before leaving the leaf on which it is, it ensures that it has a second leaf to hold on to. It holds on to a second leaf and stabilizing it, then leaves the first one. You and I also, this ahankriti, this abhimana, dehabhimana or vyaktitva abhimana is like that. We won't leave anything until we hold already another thing. Whereas tyage naike amrutatva manashahu from Kaivalya Upanishad, it is by renunciation. And what is renunciation? The most beautiful thing about it is not about doing, it is about seeing. When you see clearly, I don't have to hold on to this image of mine. I don't have to hold on to this picture, this favorable idea, because to say it is a highly favorable scenario if people call me some director, chairman, this or that. It's very favorable, it's very nice. I would prefer, given the choice, if people call me very handsome or very knowledgeable, very scholarly. See, in 1,000 ways, we have desires about how people should look at us, and we get attached. Many a time, we would like to be in charge of something. We would like to say to all, we like to believe also that if we leave that place, things will sink. Actually, nobody in the group thinks so. People actually would be happy if we go. We impose ourselves, here and there, because we are attached. It is for our pleasure that we impose ourselves in various positions, and the younger people or some other members of the group, they really do not depend on us at all. Have you heard of that joke of the scout boy who had to enter in his diary an act of service? So he entered something in his diary, and when his mentor asked him next day, "What did you do yesterday?" he showed proudly, "This is my entry." And it said, "I helped an old lady cross the road where there was traffic light and she was finding it hard. I helped her go across the road at the signal." The mentor was happy, but then he stopped a moment and said, "Did that lady thank you when you took her that side?" Then he says, "Actually she protested." Why? She didn't want to cross the road at all. She was a tourist. She was standing this side and looking at the skyscrapers or something else, and how nice. And she did not want to cross the road. But he was looking for some opportunity. He said, come, I will take you across." And dragged her and took her across and entered in his diary. Who is that scout boy? Every one of us. Next time you think, I have a duty towards my wife, my husband, my children, my neighbors, my country. Sorry. There may be some truth, but I am saying sorry. The Upanishads, the spirit of Upanishads asks you to inquire carefully. Do you really have a duty? Or you have, brainwashed yourself because you need an identity. You need a position, you need a status, you need a chair to sit on, you need an image. This is the deeper psychology. And by saying, Evam vidvanete atmanam spranute, what is meant is, this person established in pure self-knowledge is free of his attachment, her attachment to images, psychological images. Doership and enjoyership actually are contained in the image. I am a doer is an image I have. And it is so, it's like software, it is so flexible, it is so, variable. Somebody does a little thing and feels as though he has done a lot. Psychology. Somebody else does a lot, but doesn't think he has done much at all. I'm not saying about saying. There are some of us who say, "Oh, I didn't do anything." If others report later, he did not do anything, we feel very embarrassed. Why do you say I didn't do anything? I did so much. I am repeating your statement, sir, if they say. Then we say, I said for Saujanya, for courtesy. That is, upachara. We say, oh no, I am nobody. I believe there was some function and some chief guest came, he came very late and the organizers did not have his introduction. And just before the chief guest was going up, they said, can you give your profile? He said, hey, no profile, I am nothing and I am nothing. The person who was to introduce took it seriously. And while introducing, the person said, okay, today our chief guest is here and ladies and gentlemen, he is actually nothing. Do you think this chief guest would have liked to hear that? But someone with Atmajnana would have a hearty laugh at it. Be sure. Someone with Atmajnana would have a hearty laugh at it, saying, thank you, this is the best introduction I ever got. He not only or she not only would say it, saying is easier. Acting also is easier. But I would explain, I would interpret these lines. The person who has risen above images would actually be totally at peace, in fact enjoy being described as nobody. He is nobody, he is nothing. That is a wonderful tribute to that person. He has no problem with it. I said this Brahmananda Valli is a wonderful storehouse. It is a great repository. It is a wonderful collection of very powerful statements, all of which, with a little guidance, point to the nature of the self. Take, for example, the Panchakoshas, which are presented here in the Brahmananda Valli. Later in the Bhragu Valli, the same teaching is more dramatized. Katha and Upakatha were referred to. In Taittiriya Upanishad, we have a Katha. Third Valli goes into a dramatization, puts it in the form of a Akhyayika, it is called. Bhragurvai Varunihi Varunam Pitaram Upasasara, that is third Valli. In the second Valli, second chapter sort of, we have the 5, what is called later on in Prakarana Granthas as Kosha. And interestingly, in the Upanishad proper, the kosha or sheath is not used. The word used is, I regard it as very interesting and significant. The word used is Atma only. In the matter of discovering who we are, in the matter of shedding, giving up all false identifications, it's a very interesting journey. Sri Ramakrishna used to say that the journey towards self-knowledge is like opening an onion, peeling an onion. So you take out another layer, yet another layer. Finally you find there is nothing. There is no ahankara. The Upanishads, of course, maintain, you remain, but your descriptions go away. Your description with a certain boundary, I am so and so, goes away. I am, full stop. Don't say indescribable, avarnaniya. And your bliss also is avarnaniya there. Your happiness also cannot be described. So what Sri Ramakrishna or many other mystics and sages said in their own beautiful ways has its seeds in the Upanishads. So we have in the Taittiriya wonderfully, the mantras describe Annamaya Atma. Atma means I. You and I, in our own lay usage of our mother tongues also, we say Atma Vishwasa, confidence in oneself. Atma Gaurava, self-respect. So Atma stands for oneself. So what is the Atma? What is the self? Who am I? There is the Annamaya Atma. And then Anyaha Antaraha. There is another Atma upon recognizing which the previous one as though is dropped. For you have found a better answer. You have found a better, understanding of who you are. The Antaraha, the inner one, Anyaha Antaraha, is Pranamayaha Atma. Then there is the Manomaya Atma. The word used is Atma in the Upanishad proper, both in Brahmanandavalli and Bhrigu. So who are you? To begin with, everybody looks at oneself as the body. Who are you? A little later, I am energies. Our attention is on, yesterday I was very energetic, today I am a little tired. Especially as we get older, especially as some of us getting diabetes and such things, we become more aware. Oh, so soon I got tired. So soon I am feeling so weak. Oh, before taking dinner I had a plan to study something for an hour or at least clear some emails. Once some food went in, I am feeling so weak. Let me do all this tomorrow. We notice how the energies fall and we don't pay much attention to the physical form or the physical body, our energies. Then there is the emotions. You and I do realize that more important than physical or energy levels, it is the emotions, that is Manomaya Atma. Though technically Manomaya Atma is much more than just emotions. Vijnanamaya Atma. The Upanishad itself says Vijnana is the layer or is that level of discovery. Compared with earlier discoveries, this is a magnificent new discovery. However, when we realize the truth of our existence, all these discoveries were a bunch of errors. Therefore, someone called this Brahmanandavalli the great narration of successive errors. One after another, error is identified, but when you first discover, it looks like, wow. Nowadays, science is leaping through such stages only. With all due respect and of much awe about achievements of science, many of their movement back and forth is sometimes rather irritating. Science maintained that diabetic people should not eat rice for decades. Many of us grew up with our uncles, aunts, etc. Of course, some of us children grew up with some jealousy also, because at night they will have some special roti or something made for them. And we children ask, why not I get some chapati, roti? Our mouth waters. Are you diabetic? Uncle is diabetic, he cannot take rice, therefore I have made roti. You eat rice? So, in South India, rice is the staple diet. So we are asked. So children sometimes those days wished also. I wish for 1 or 2 nights I was diabetic, I would have got roti. Such a big statement, it was widespread. But now the latest discovery in science, in medicine is both wheat and rice are equally glycemic. So not much difference at all. So let me not go more into it. There is an excitement in a certain discovery. Then when you discover the greater truth, this is put aside as an error. In this way, to be brief, it is the Brahmanandavalli which takes us through Annamaya, the food self, Pranamaya, the energy self, Manomaya, the mind self, the mental self, so to say, Vijnanamaya, the intellectual self, Anandamaya, the bliss self. Ultimately, there is pure bliss, there is undifferentiated happiness, where you are not the personality at all. I have heard that the word personae in Latin means a mask. Our entire personality is said to be a mask. Mukvada. ಯಾರನ್ನ ನೋಡಿ ಅಸೂಯೆ ಪಟ್ಟರೆ ಅವರನ್ನು ನೋಡಿಲ್ಲ ನಾವು. ವಿ ಆರ್ ಸೀಯಿಂಗ್ ಹಿಸ್ ಮುಖವಾಡ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಎನ್ವಿಯಿಂಗ್ ಹಿಮ್. ಆರ್ ದೇ ಆರ್ ಎನ್ವಿಯಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಅಸ್, ದೇ ಆರ್ ನಾಟ್ ಸೀಯಿಂಗ್ ಅಸ್, ದೇ ಆರ್ ಸೀಯಿಂಗ್ ಅವರ್ ಮಾಸ್ಕ್. We are seeing each other's images. Who is the real existing principle? What is the principle behind the mask? That is the topic of the Upanishads. So it is said, this Anandamaya Atma, according to one interpretation, that leads to the pure self. There is another interpretation, that is the end of the discovery, right? That itself is Atma. Either way, the Namarupatmaka self, sense of I which has a boundary, which has a past and future, which is described in space and time, which is described relative to X or Y, that is negated. Who am I? The answer in the Upanishads ultimately, as brought out very powerfully in the Brahmanandavalli of Taittiriya Upanishad, is I am that which is not bound by space, which is not bound by time, which is not relative to another entity, in which actually therefore nothing happens at all. It doesn't grow. There are mantras in various Upanishads saying this in explicit terms in Sanskrit, in the original language. But I am putting it in simple language, in simple today's English at present. That which doesn't grow, that which doesn't diminish, that is your nature, and so on. And if you are anchored in that nature, we said a while ago, we spent quite some time on it, you are free from any guilt, any shame. That doesn't mean you get a license to do anything. You would not, you cannot do anything wrong then. It would not be misused at all. In fact, even if somebody comes and misunderstands you for being a thief or being some wrongdoer and jails you, since you have no insecurity of any kind, you deal with what happens to you in unbelievably, astonishingly graceful ways. Socrates, when he had to take the cup of poison, was so graceful, so dignified, and in his speech called Apology, towards the end, he makes a statement. I do not know whether I have to envy these people or these people have to envy me. Who is more fortunate? I do not remember the exact words. You know that, I have been victimized and all these people are having a good time. That doesn't come to Socrates' consciousness. If he were attached to image, if he were attached to wealth, if he were attached to position, he would have been a very sorry person while dying. But Socrates, I'm not saying he had Atmajnana, but people like Socrates or Mahatma Gandhi, etc., because of a life of tremendous integrity, they were very close to this self-realization. They had as though a glimpse of that. Because a life of integrity brings you very close. Then a passing breeze as though throws you onto the lap of gods, as the expression goes. So, there is no guilt, there is no shame, and one does what is right, spontaneously. On one hand, it is freedom from that kind of negative energies. To give one or two more of examples from Brahmananda Valli, it is this Valli which very beautifully, or with a great force, I should say, brings out how self-knowledge can help you and me get over one of the most fundamental troubles, one of the most fundamental problems in human psychology. And what is that most fundamental problem? Fear. Fear, I don't know how many of you have thought much about fear. I have read a lot about fear and I have thought a lot about fear, and I wish to say, as a summary of what I have understood, what I have discovered is, all of us actually in daily life, in countless choices we make, are driven by fear and not by objectivity. All the time there is fear. What will people say? If I take this, if I buy this, if I accept this offer, if I enjoy this pleasure, or if I renounce that, or renounce that offer, give up that some other offer. 100 things. Choices means this or that. If we are not very self-aware, we think that I chose it because there were these benefits, and I had avoided it because there were those problems. Actually, go a little deeper. You will find that more than those benefits, material or otherwise, and more than those problems, material or otherwise, actually, primarily, your choice is guided by a sense of fear. In fear in relationship, fear in terms of I may get money, but if I don't continue to be respected by, leave alone others, my own spouse, or I am attached to somebody, and that person to whom I am attached, suppose, doesn't look at me with much regard. So I am afraid. I am afraid of losing love, losing regard, losing respect, losing care. You and I are, Nobel laureates or Olympic gold medalists or all those celebrities in different fields. All of them, I have no doubt, live in fear. Fear is a very fundamental, force shaping human choices. And Taittiriya Upanishad says, if one were to be anchored in this undivided consciousness, then one is completely established in the purest, fearless state. It is a very inspiring passage. Let me try to read it. Yes. Yada he vaisha etasmin adrishye anatme anirukte anilayane abhayam. I am splitting this sandhi. Adrishye anatme anirukte anilayane abhayam pratishtam vindate atasaha abhayam gato bhavati. When one establishes oneself in this adrishya, see, the personality is drishya. We stand before the mirror and say, not bad, I have got back some lost weight. Or those who are a bit, not bad, I have shed some pounds. Okay. And otherwise, my name comes somewhere, not bad. Nowadays, finally people are understanding who I am. In various ways, the mind plays its pranks. But this personality, I am this, is drishya. Upanishad says, can you, for a change, station yourself in something that is adrishya? There are many, each word, can be elaborated extensively. But then, let me draw your attention to the next sentence, which is also very powerful. Yada he vaisha etasmin udaramantaram kurute atatasya bhayam bhavati. Antara means the slightest. Antara is division. Uttaram, it means the slightest. The slightest division you make. Our human psychology generally does it. You, I and he, went somewhere. Next day newspaper says, my name. He went there. When Narendra Modi came, Swami Chidananda was seen talking to the Prime Minister for 2 minutes. And your name and his name was not mentioned. It's not easy, friends, not to feel a slight pleasure. We were 3 actually, and my name has come. Though politically clever that we are, when I meet you, I say, see this newspaper, they have not put your names at all. They should have put your names and not mine. All that cover up we do. But secretly we are happy that our name came. This is called Udara Mantaram. I, in contrast to other. Or the other way it happens, all of us did something and all your names were mentioned, not mine. To be politically correct, I may say. And see, it is very wonderful that they mentioned our team, though they left my name, it's okay. But to be extremely honest, I cannot claim that I am totally free from a tiny, a little pain, because we are all very attached to me and the others. Me should be projected, the others, I think they also should be getting, I agree. But me, I should get what I deserve, what people owe me, I should get. Who is free from it? So, the Upanishad doesn't talk about sammana and all those. It says that thought process where you have believed that there are others and there is me. That is other. Udaram antaram. Etasmin, the truth of life is undivided consciousness. And you need to, the purpose of studying Upanishads is to appreciate this undivided consciousness with all clarity and to know I am that and to stay there. Nothing else would be sufficient. All else is bhuktaye natu muktaye. For bhukti, not for mukti, all else. Udaramantaram kurute atatasya bhayam bhavati. This is declared in no uncertain terms. So people who are realized, you have heard of Nisargadatta Maharaj, whose dialogues have been published as I am that. In that you get number of samples, number of examples. I will quote one and pause or stop for tonight. They asked him, Nisargadatta, what's the difference between your world and our world? His answer was, in your world a lot of things happen. In my world nothing happens. For there is no me. Of course, the context is happening, meaning our rising, our falling, our getting promoted, our getting praised, and some other time our being ignored, our being persecuted, our being neglected. All are events, In the life of you and me, a lot of things happen. But for someone who is anchored in the undivided consciousness, outwardly a lot of things happen. They may be persecuted, they may be honored, they may be worshipped, or they may be shot at, they may be crucified. 1,000 things outwardly happen. But inwardly, because they are not attached or identified with that person, they are able to experience as though nothing is happening. Incidentally, that itself is the mark of unconditional love. That is another practical significance of self-knowledge. Self-knowledge is not at all about getting our job done and, I am free now. It's not an individual affair of my job is done, others, God bless them. That would be ridiculous. Self-knowledge is to come upon a really out of the way insight that there is just this Brahma, Sarvam Khalvidam Brahma, as the Chandogya puts it, Tajjalaniti Shanta Upasita. Shanta, be peaceful. Don't take sides. Don't take Don't again and again get into one more new battle of some kind. Enough. Be sattvic, be mature. Shanta upasita. Chandogya saying, Shanto bhutva. Tajjalaniti. Ja is birth and la is laya, dissolution, an is sustenance. There is a truth in which everything is born, everything stays for some time, into which everything goes. Appreciate the truth of that Brahma, Shanta upasita. Being peaceful, meditate on it, you will find that your life becomes fulfilled. It is not at all a relative achievement. I did it, others remained behind. It is rather absence of this business of others and I. So many are the facets, many are the shining facets of this diamond called self-knowledge. And Upanishads, I must say, show these shining facets in the most eminent manner. All of you have heard very patiently for these 6 evenings at this really wonderful place. It is divine grace that you and I could apply our minds to these thoughts. I invoke Lord Narayana's grace upon one and all. Perhaps 2 or 3 questions can be taken tonight also. Om Namo Narayanaya.
These days, most of the foreign people,
Yes.
we find they are following Indian culture, Hinduism and other things.
Yes.
Whereas our own Indians are
Yes.
supposed to get into more of this, are distancing themselves away from this.
Yeah.
Most of them
Yeah.
have become atheists. And there is one more section of people who call themselves rationalists.
Yeah.
Saints like you sitting in front of us, discoursing today, there are lots of people like this. If you are sitting like in front of us and giving a discourse,
Yeah.
and so many learned people are listening to you, you are definitely a highly elevated soul,
Mm-hmm.
and we are zeros in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
Still,
Hmm.
we have many cases wherein
Yes.
many of the saints have succumbed to the pressure of these rationalists
Correct.
for the fear of exposure
Correct.
and blackmail.
Correct.
What do you attribute this to?
Yeah, these are trends. These are, certain trends. But I would appeal to you not to jump to a conclusion. Satyameva jayate. The trends will be, up and on for some time. Then the reverse trend begins. Now you see how yoga has picked up in the West. And now realizing that yoga is practiced by, millions and millions of people in the West. A lot of Indians have become more regular in yoga now. So sometimes it is a trend, but there is a homecoming. Once it is received by some eminent people, in the East, in India also, people do. And partly you should sympathize with the younger generation because of this information explosion and the technology's, expansion. They are unable to cope with So we have to change our communication methods. Now younger generation cannot sit like this for an hour and a half. They need short. You need Vedanta tweets. So we need to tweet Vedanta, tweet values. It is the Twitter jamana now. On Facebook and Twitter and WhatsApp and such things. Why younger generation? Even I am a member of some WhatsApp groups. Today, I have just left aside 3 or 4 messages which were more than 5 lines. I cannot read more than 5 lines. There was a time when I used to say I am unable to reply to messages. Now I am not able to read messages. So long. Yeah, Satya.
Thank you, Swami.
Welcome.
The question I have is, when you said Nisargadatta Maharaj,
Yeah.
in his world does nothing moves,
Correct.
and everything happens. Now my question is, if you're detached,
Yes.
the way you said, and nothing happens, and you're really immune to either positive or negative emotions. My question is, what makes the world go around? In other words, what is the motivation for things to change? Obviously things have to move on, and things have to get better. Sometimes, but in other words, there has to be a pursuit of something.
Yeah.
Now, if there is no, what is the motivation? What makes the world go wrong? If you are totally detached, if you look at, for example, capitalism.
Correct.
American capitalism.
Yeah.
Which is exactly the opposite, because they think that things happen when you take ownership.
Yes.
They preach the exact opposite. That you have to be attached, only then do you do things really well,
Correct.
to satisfaction and excellence.
Correct.
So, where do you see, where is the motivation for things to happen?
Yeah. So, Sakama Karma is where, let's say, West and all is very well anchored, and they have no conflict about it, and they achieve a lot. Now, in the East also, overwhelming majority of people are into the Sakama Karma only. So, this going for Nishkama are very few people. But I am of the view that these Nishkama people, both in the West and East, there are some truly selfless people. They are the invisible pillars of this world actually. Though they are very few, they influence the Sakama people. The Sakama people, after some amount of wealth, etc., they start serving. Now, Bill Gates is philanthropic. So many successful people in the West are totally into philanthropy now. King Ashoka in our country's history, who was so ruthless, totally took a 180-degree turn later, was promoting Buddhism. So my view is the Sakama people seem to be running the show, and they are to an extent. But even during that time, here and there, they take a note of the beauty of Nishkama Karma. And when a certain point comes in their life, they do Nishkama Karma. Nishkama Karmis are small in number, but they hold actually the whole world in balance. If there were not to be at least a few people talking of unconditional love, the world will collapse. If all were Sakama Karmis, the world will collapse in no time. It is Nishkama Karmis only who are, So it is Rishis like DVG and all, who have written certain things, who have said certain things, and they have gone. And somebody may catch the spirit when one is 30. Somebody may catch the spirit when one is 60. But when one catches the spirit of these Rishi-like figures, that is when they find life getting really meaningful. But till they catch that fire, they are of course achieving, they are building. They make money, that is all there. Therefore, we don't look down at it. But deeper meaning comes to even those Sakama Karmis when they get the spirit of the Nishkama Karma. Yeah.
Sir, while thanking, you mentioned you owe thanks to DVG,
Yeah.
Living Spirit of DVG,
Correct.
and the institution.
Correct.
Actually, sir, when a person is dying,
Yeah.
what happens is the I
Yeah.
within us, whether you should thank awareness within us or the BMI.
Yes. Oh, I see. By thanking the BMI, actually we are thanking the awareness only. See, these personalities who were able to bring out that brilliance, how did they bring it out? Because they were appreciating the awareness better. So this is answered by Sri Krishna in the 10th chapter of Gita. Yadyad vibhuti matsattvam shrimadurjitam evava tattadeva avagachatvam mama tejomsha sambhavam. So whether DVG or you, he or she, suppose brings out a certain excellence in life, that is possible only by a conscious or unconscious appreciation of the divine in oneself. That's where earlier question also I said, this Nishkama Karma or Nishkama Seva etc. goes a bit unrecorded, but it is the source of everything. So, that verse in 10th chapter of Gita says, wherever there is a great performer, know him to be a reflection, a small part of my glory. Therefore, when we pay tribute to great souls, we are paying tribute through the BMI, which has attained some excellence, to the source of it. The source of excellence is Brahma. It is Brahma Chintana. Now, if Bill Gates has become a philanthropic, he doesn't know the word Brahma or Atma or these big words, Sanskrit words. But somewhere he has seen that in pursuing something undivided, others and I are one. That's the expression we give, philosophers. Earlier it was, he said, oh, if I do this, I'll become richer. If I do this, I'll have more, sale all over the world. I've heard that, not Bill Gates, Andy Grove, one of the founders of Intel, when he came to Far East and had a meeting, and it was reported to him, Andy Grove, Intel founder, that some 83% of market share is with Intel. He got furious. Where did the 17% go? That is when he was tremendously sakama karmi. He wanted all 100%. Nobody should buy anything else, apparently. So he wanted everything to himself. So Bill Gates also, I think, went through that phase. But then somewhere without, or maybe he studied also, these days everybody learns from everywhere. Somewhere it occurred to him that this worship of the individual personality is a shallow affair. Adoring or pursuing something, the total good, has a greater charm. So he is into it now. And Zuckerberg, etc., even this Facebook fellow, even at a young age is throwing money for so many charitable causes. America is now going big on charity. I think it is a feather on their cap if they not only make money but they give for noble causes. I think it's not just a show off. They are experiencing that happiness. So the tribute is to the Brahma only, sir. Through the BMI. BMI is the window. BMI is where it shines through. Through DBG or through X, through Y, that supreme truth shines through. Any last question for the evening? Doesn't matter. Narayana. Om Namo Narayana.